put this one on YouTube as well, and I'll share with all of you. And but as I said, most of the answers will be pretty much available. But if not, no worries. The more, the better. So what I was saying was that, if somebody asks you to introduce yourself, you can, for example, this person. What this person can say is that, I have been working as a senior healthcare business analyst, or a senior systems analyst, or senior business systems analyst in the healthcare industry for 7+ years. And being a BA, I work throughout all the phases of SDLC. I am responsible for requirements, gathering and documentation of requirements. I do a lot of design work. I work with the developers, walk them through all the requirements, and I do a lot of testing based on my requirements, and support the implementation and the final go live of the project, support the project even after implementation. So I'm a BA who can work through all the phases of SDLC. Okay, and let's say this person is now working for, I think, a pharmaceutical company. So what he can say is that, being in the healthcare industry, I have worked on a number of healthcare projects, or I'm very familiar with a number of healthcare projects. For example, I have worked on HIPAA 5010 implementation, ICD-10 implementation, Obamacare implementation, or implementation of a web module for enrollment process for a pharmaceutical company. Okay, this is what his current project says. Okay, so your second part can be the kind of projects you are familiar with or you can work with. Okay, any kind of enhancements. So that's your second part. And the third part can be, you can talk about all the tools and technologies you're familiar with. Being a healthcare BA, I'm very familiar with Rally, I'm very familiar with Jira, or Rational Requisite Pro, HP Quality Center, SQL, MS Visio, all the tools you're familiar with. Okay, so by presenting yourself and then by introducing yourself in such a manner, when you say that, I'm a healthcare BA, I've been in the industry for 7+ years, and as a BA, I do all these things as my responsibility, and as a BA, I have implemented all these projects, or I'm familiar with all these projects, and being in the industry for all these years, I have worked with all these tools, or I'm familiar with all these tools like Rally and Jira and all those. What you're essentially doing is that you're presenting yourself as a very well-seasoned healthcare BA, okay, who knows what needs to be done, who has a very good working knowledge of EDI transactions and ICD and all those things, who has a very good knowledge of all these tools and technologies. So I'm someone who knows a lot of stuff, and if you hire me as a BA, I can learn even more things which you guys are using, and then I can do a very good job in assisting you in your implementation. Okay, so that's essentially the idea here, by introducing yourself in such a manner. So let me repeat the answer. I mean, I'm all over the place. So let me just formalize the answer in one more time. So I've been working as a senior business analyst in the healthcare industry for 7+ years. And being a healthcare BA, I am very familiar, very comfortable working through all the phases of SDLC. I play a very leading role in the requirements phase. I am responsible for gathering and documentation of all the requirements. And also I do a lot of diagrammatic representations in the design phase. And once all the documentation is done, I conduct a formal walkthrough to the developers and for all the requirements and for the scope of the project. And I also assist in a lot of testing based on my approved set of requirements. And I assist in deployment and go live of the project. And once a project is implemented, I make sure I also support the project after implementation. And being in the healthcare industry, I'm very familiar with EDI transactions and like 834, 837. I know about ICD implementation. I know about Obamacare implementation. I know about EDI enhancement implementations and all those things. And being in the industry or going through all these trainings related to business analysis, I'm very familiar with MS Visio, with SQL, with Jira, with Rally, HP Quality Center, all those tools and technologies used in the healthcare industry. So say something like this. You don't have to say exactly what I just said. You don't have to just dictate the same answer word by word. Formalize your own answer based upon whatever your resume is, and then present yourself as someone who's very knowledgeable as far as business analysis is concerned, healthcare technologies are concerned, tools are concerned. So you're very familiar with all these things. Okay. Now, when people hear SQL, when I say people, I mean the interviewers, they hear SQL, they say, okay, so I heard you said that you're good with SQL. So what do you think about SQL? I mean, how good are you with SQL? Well, from a business analyst perspective, I think I'm pretty comfortable with SQL, and I would rate myself around 7, 8 on scale of 10. I mean, I'm not a developer, but from a BA perspective, from a reporting analyst perspective, yeah, I'm pretty good. I like to believe that. Okay, what kind of responsibilities do you have with SQL? Well, when it comes to SQL, I mean, what I do is I work with different teams within my organization or within the for whatever client I'm working for. I work with the different teams, and these teams send their ad hoc query requests, and I work on those ad hoc query requests. Okay, let me write this in the chat box if you don't remember this term. Ad hoc query request. So this is what I do. Now, they might be interested in knowing that, okay, what kind of ad hoc queries do you generate? Well, depending on the scenario, I mean, I can get a request from a specific team member saying, if I can pull up a report for all the medical claims for the first quarter of 2018. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll ask questions and understand what fields are they looking for, what's the criteria for that report, and what exactly they are looking for in a report. And based on their requirements, I will write a SQL query, generate a report, and send them the report. Okay, they'll say, okay, what else? And I keep getting requests from other teams too. I mean, somebody wants to see list of all medications under a certain plan. Okay, so I will go to the formulary table. Okay, let me write this in the chat box as well. Formulary means the list of all medications. Let's leave it at that. Okay, let's not get too much into details. So everything related to prescription drugs and whatever is part of formulary. Or I can look at the provider table, list of all doctors. I can look at the list of all treatments patients are eligible for. So I can go to all these tables, and based on their requirements, I can pull up data from all these tables and generate a report and send it to the team. So I do a lot of ad hoc query requests, okay, related to patient data or related to claims data, related to provider data, related to treatment data, or any kind of data. They'll say, okay, that sounds fair. Now you said you are very good with documentation. What kind of documentation are you talking about? Well, from a BA perspective, I mean, of course, I do all the requirements, or I document all the requirements in an RTM, requirements traceability matrix, and then I create a lot of design documents, design diagrams in MS Visio, and all of those go into that BRD, the formal business requirements document. And so that's what I do. I also do a lot of technical requirements. Okay. Did you guys, let me ask you this. Did you get a chance to review the recording, difference between business and technical requirements? I didn't discuss that topic separately because that's something I thought you can manage on your own. Did you get a chance, or did that recording not work? What do you think, guys? How many of you have reviewed the recording? James says yes. Okay, so at least the recording is working. What about others? Sandy says yes. Okay, so by any chance, if anyone hasn't reviewed their recording, it's a really simple topic. I urge you to do that. Okay, and if you want, I can brief you over again. That's not a problem, but at least review it on your own. See, since we're in a fast track mode, I mean, of course, I will be skipping some minor topics here and there and expect you to review on your own. Okay, and that is one of them. But again, I'm very happy to revisit with you this week and just to brush you over all those things again. But yeah, review it. Okay. So technical requirements is also something business analysts do, and how those they are documented, I have discussed in that class. So going back to our answer, as a BA, I create an RTM, I do all the design documents, I create a BRD, then I create the test case document, test scripts, and all those all the documentation related to testing, and any documentation related to deployment or final go live of the project. So I do all these documents. They'll say, okay, that's good. What do you think is the best methodology? Methodology for what? Methodology for implementation. Waterfall and Agile, are you aware? Are you familiar? Yes, I am. Which one do you think is the best? Well, from implementation perspective, both Waterfall and Agile have their pros and cons. Okay, they both are good. Depending on the nature of the project, depending on the scope of the project, depending on the team environment, both methodologies, there are of course different styles of implementing projects. Both the styles are great and they have their pros and cons. Okay, as a BA, what do you think are the pros and cons of Waterfall versus Agile? Well, in Waterfall, I mean, of course, we get a lot of time for documentation. I mean, Waterfall is definitely great for documenting the all areas of the project. So it's definitely beneficial when it comes to documentation. Okay. In Agile, of course, we don't do that much of documentation, but in Agile, we get to see the progress. We get to see a working prototype after first few weeks or first few months. Okay, because we have a release after first few iterations of the implementation. So we get to see a real-time working module related to the project. So Agile is definitely better in that way. Whereas in Waterfall, we don't get to see anything working until testing begins. So from documentation perspective, Waterfall is better. From seeing the progress from time to time, Agile is better. Agile is of course more fast paced. The time goes by a lot faster. And in Agile, teams are a little smaller, close-knit teams. I like working in small teams. It's great. So Agile, of course, has that benefit as well. Smaller teams, a lot of progress from time to time. And so, yeah, these are pros and cons. And as far as the BA, my preference is concerned, depending on the nature, depending on the scope, depending on the team environment, I'm okay working on both. Does it make sense, guys? With me so far? Am I going too fast, or what do you think? Do you agree? Do you don't agree? What do you think? What about the others? Yeah, so these are some of the questions. Don't get me wrong. There was an interview with, I mean, one of our candidates had an interview with a client in Minnesota, and they use Agile. So they asked him a bunch of questions related to um, Agile versus Waterfall. That which one do you prefer and why? And honestly, from an interview perspective, interview prep perspective, I like to play a little diplomatically, and I try to nudge in both the directions and say, hey, you know what? From a BA perspective, I'm okay working on both. Okay, and it depends what kind of environment do we have, what kind of the culture do we have, and what's the scope of the project. Okay, in many cases, if you're working on a government project, like state Medicaid or something, and it's a large scale big project, usually we have waterfall. Okay, and then if it's a private company and then it's a smaller implementation, smaller teams, we have an agile. I'm okay working on both. Okay, don't be too hard against any one of these methodologies, because if the client you're interviewing with, they are not, if they are on agile and you say, you know what, you don't like agile, you might not even get the job. Okay, and the other way around. So be a little careful. They, and don't get me wrong, I'm not even lying. I'm not saying that you have to agree with the client just to get the job. I'm just saying that, literally speaking, I mean, both of them, they have advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so try to bring up something like that. Now, another question, interview question can be, let me, let me open this document. Test cases. Okay. Yeah. So one of the questions interviewers like to ask is that, oh, you know, so what's your style of gathering requirements? I think we discussed that on Friday, and you all know, facilitate a chat sessions. Sorry, send out a meeting invite, facilitate a chat session, take notes, take meeting minutes, document all the requirements, send it back, get approval on the requirements. If they have feedback, you make those changes and send it again. So it goes back and forth unless you have an approved set of requirements. So that's a JAT session. And then after a few JAT sessions, you will only have one-on-one interview sessions with the SMEs. You don't need to bring everyone in that room, and you don't need 20 people discussing requirements. So things change after a certain period of time. So requirements gathering is something we have already discussed, and I really hope that you are okay with that answer, or at least you're familiar with that answer. You don't have to agree with all of it. If you want to add some of your own opinions, feel free to do so. Okay. Now, one of the questions they might ask is that, okay, requirements, we get it. You are the BA, you work on requirements, and you're great. Sure. What about testing? What do you do in testing? What's your experience with testing? Well, as a business analyst, what I do is I take the approved set of business requirements as my foundation. Say these words. As a business analyst, what I do is I take the approved set of business requirements as my foundation. And based on those business requirements, I document all the possible test cases and test scripts. And once I have the test cases and test scripts approved, I execute those test cases in the test server. Let me repeat. I take approved set of business requirements as a foundation, and based on those approved requirements, I document my test cases and test scripts. Once test cases and test scripts are approved, I execute these test cases in the test server. I actually do the testing in the test server. If there are any defects, I create a defect and assign it to a developer. After a defect is fixed, I retest it. So, during testing, my responsibility as a BA is more or less on the documentation side, documentation of test cases and test scripts, and then doing the actual testing, and then creating the defects. This is what I do during the testing phase. They say, if you're doing some testing on your application and something is wrong, and you want to communicate that defect to the developer, besides writing the description of the defect, what else would you do? I'll take screenshots of the developer, also of the defect. If anything goes wrong, anything is not working, If I see some error on the screen, I will take a screenshot of that and share it with the developer. So not only I create the defect, I write the verbal part of the defect, I also share a screenshot of the defect so the developer knows what exactly is going wrong, what exactly is the nature of the problem, and he can do a lot more research more effectively. What tools are you familiar with for defect management? Rally, Jira, ClearQuest. You must have seen Rally during Raj's class last week. Make sense, guys? So far, so good? What if something goes wrong after implementation? Well, after going live with the project, after implementing a certain project, I always support the project at least for first few weeks, making sure everything is running smoothly. Anything goes wrong, I understand what's going wrong, I document what's going wrong, I walk through the developers what exactly is the nature of the problem, they fix it, I retest it, and then we implement the fix. This is what I do. I support systems even after implementation, even after going live. What do you mean by going live? Once the code or the program is fully tested, everything is certified bug free, we migrate the code from the test server to the production server. What else? What's your role in defect management? I think I missed that part, sorry. This is how the defects are created. Okay. What is this? The defects are created in Rally. Your project manager can pull up a report of all the defects from Rally or Jira, and it will look like this. Who's your manager in this case? Your test manager. They will discuss these defects during their defect call. During testing phase, guys, I want you to remember this and say this in an interview, in your own words, of course. During testing phase, when the team of testers or the BAs are testing, when they're testing and they're creating defects for whatever defect or whatever bug they encounter, we as a team will have a defect discussion meeting on a daily basis. Initially, it's going to be daily basis, then it will be 3 times a week, 2 times a week, and then 1 time a week. What do we discuss? Your test manager will run this meeting and he will pull up the report of all the active defects and he will discuss each and every defect. You, the BA, will talk about what defect you created and why, what exactly is happening, what's going wrong, what functionality is not working, what kind of errors are you facing. You'll walk through the nature of the defect. To whom? To the developer, so that he can understand what's going on. He can go back and fix it and ask you to retest it. Does it make sense, guys? This is going to be a defect call. Every implementation, every project implementation will have a defect call from time to time. Not from time to time, rather, sorry, I take it back. During the testing phase. Initially, it will be every day. Then it will be 4 times a week, 3 times a week. As number of defects go down, it will be fewer times a week. Who will be participating? Well, the meeting is being run by test manager. Participants will be mostly testers, which can or cannot be a BA, and developers. The testers will explain the nature of the defect, why it's a defect, why do you think it's a defect. They will walk through the nature of the defect. To whom? To the developer, so that he understands what needs to be fixed. And he fixes it, and he sends you back the defect and says, you know what, please retest. It should work now. Make sense, guys? Also, I don't know if you remember this, but every system has two servers. One is a test server, one is a production server. Initially, all development, everything is done in the test server, and all testing is done in test server too. Once everything is fixed, bug free, no problems, the code, the program is moved from test server to the production server, and that's when you have the go live date. That's when the system is in production, and anyone in this world can use that system. I mean, if it's a web system, yeah, people will be able to log into that website. Make sense? Now, one of the questions, James says, what about development server? What do you mean by development server? Where the development is done, that is a test server. Where the programming is initially done. When programmers write the code initially, it's not a perfect code. There will be lots of bugs and errors. So they cannot let everyone in the world use that system. If it's an app, nobody can download that app because it's still full of bugs. So where are the programmers writing the code? In the test server. Once everything is fixed, they move it to production server. Now the app is available for download. Okay, that's what it means. Now, one of the things, I think Ilcom asked this question the other day, and I think I didn't discuss that one the other day, but we can do it today. One of the things they can definitely ask you is that, how do you deal with tough stakeholders? Okay, if you're dealing with a business stakeholder who's very tough, or who doesn't know what he exactly wants from the system, how do you deal with that person? If you are a BA and you are dealing with 2 or 3 stakeholders who will be who are supposed to discuss all the requirements with you, but they really don't know what they want, or who they are not very communicative, or they are not very clearly outlining what exactly needs to be done, how do you deal with those people? Well, as a business analyst, what I would do is I would invite them for requirements gathering session and ask them as many questions as possible. I would go prepared with my list of questions. Okay, so as a BA, I would go prepared with my list of questions and ask them as many questions as possible, or whatever I need to know. Based on my understanding, I will create a lot of diagrammatic representations, process flows, business process flows, swim lane diagrams, and so on, and write some basic number of requirements based on our conversation. Once I have diagrammatic representations and requirements ready, I would take it back and present it to the business stakeholders and ask them that, okay, is this exactly what they're looking for? Since they could not communicate very clearly what they want, I have put everything in pictorial perspective, and now I'm presenting it to them and asking them this question: is this exactly what you're looking for? Or no? Do you want any changes? If yes, please let me know right away. So when you are working with a stakeholder who's either not very communicative, or who is not very clear with his words, or doesn't know what he wants from the system, based on whatever you understand, you create a diagrammatic part, a verbal part, and present it to the team and ask them what exactly they want. Is this exactly what they're looking for? If they say yes, fine. If they say no, okay, what would you do differently and how? So working with a tough stakeholder, working with a difficult stakeholder, working with someone who doesn't know what exactly he wants from the system, you as a BA have to play a very, very articulate role and make sure you document everything based on whatever you have understood. You create some diagrammatic representations and present it to the stakeholders. When stakeholders look at all those diagrams, it will be a lot easier for them to communicate what exactly they want from the system. This is how I deal with tough stakeholders. Does it make sense, guys? Do you have anything to add? Is there anything you want to add to this answer? Do you agree with me or you disagree with me? Do you have anything else in mind? Please feel free to share. That's okay. What do you think? So far, so good? Okay. Another question can be, how do you handle conflicts? I think that was Ilcom's question. So, but anyways, how do you handle conflicts? How do you manage conflicts? Well, it depends. If I am involved in a conflict, how do I manage those? Well, if I have a disagreement with any team member, okay, if I have a disagreement with any team member, what I would do is first try to understand and explain the nature of the problem, the nature of the task which we are trying to do. Okay, so that there's no miscommunication in the nature of the problem, at least. Because when I have disagreement with someone, it's always on the it's always on the solution. We always have disagreements on solutions, right? So we have to make sure first that we understand the problem correctly and both of us are on the same page as far as the understanding of the problem is concerned. That's my first step. Okay, and then I would try to present my point of view and I would provide all the possible reasoning along with it. Okay, I will not just throw some empty statements, but I will provide my answer, my opinion, along with the actual reasoning as per my knowledge. And then I would try to analyze what exactly the other person is saying. What is their approach? Why is it different? Why is there a disagreement between us? Is there a miscommunication? So, based on the actual need of the project, based on the actual problem, I would analyze my opinion, I would analyze the other person's opinion, and then we'll have a very open and communicative dialogue in the presence of the project manager so that he knows what's going on, and then we'll come to a conclusion. But I will make sure that both of us, whoever with I have a disagreement with, have a very clear understanding of the nature of the problem first. You cannot build a substantial or a credible solution for a problem if both of you have a different understanding of the nature of the problem. Let me repeat. If I am involved in a disagreement with any particular individual within the team, what I would do is, first of all, I would make sure that both of us are on the same page as far as the understanding of the nature of the problem is concerned. Okay. We will never be able to get on the same page unless we don't have the clear understanding of the actual nature of the problem. So that's what I would do first. And then I would present my opinion based on all the facts, based on whatever my opinion is. and I would present it. Then I would very clearly try to understand what exactly the other person is saying and the logic behind it. Analyze the situation in, of course, the presence of the project manager. Whatever makes perfect sense for the success of the project, we'll go that route. They'll say, okay, give me an example of disagreement. And I'll give you a real life example, guys. You know what, I was working for a particular client. Okay. And this particular client said, we have a particular module of the system. There was a particular module which required a lot of manual work. Okay, it was an enrollment process, not for patients, but for some other thing. It was an enrollment system, and it required a lot of manual work. Okay, and this client said, you know what, it requires so much of manual work, and it's prone to errors. It's not good. Let's automate this process. Understand the process. Hey, you are the BA Dhruv. Understand the process and come up with the automation design of this process. Completely automate this so that there's no manual intervention. It will be very efficient. It will be very good for us. I said, sure. I went to the developers. Developers said, you know what, we cannot do this. It will take a long time to automate this. We cannot do it in 2 months. Sorry. We have a deadline and we cannot automate this process. Okay. So business stakeholders want me to automate something. Programmers say they cannot automate it because it will take a long time. There's a disagreement right there. I'm the B, I'm stuck in between. What do I do? My first step was to understand the actual enrollment process. What I did was I actually understood at the grassroots level what exactly this process is. What are the different steps involved in this process? What is the manual intervention required? I analyzed all of that. Based on my understanding, I came up with a better idea. I came up with partial automation. I said, look, business stakeholders want 100% automation. Technical developers say, you know what, we cannot automate it. It's very expensive. It's very time consuming. We don't have the time. So let's not fully automate it. Let's partially automate this. The process which is most time consuming, let's only automate that part. So I came up with that idea. As a BA, I presented that idea and was finally implemented. Let me repeat. Have you ever been part of any disagreements? Yes, I have. Give me an example. Well, there was a certain situation where I was a BA and business stakeholders wanted to automate a certain process which required a lot of manual intervention. Developers, however, had a disagreement that they won't be able to implement in a short time span. So I was a BA, I was stuck in middle. So what did I do? I analyzed the situation. I analyzed that particular module. I understood all the pain points. Based on my understanding, I came up with a new proposal. Let's not fully automate this. Let's partially automate this so that we can implement this within a specified time frame. We can do this and everybody's happy. It's a compromise, but at least everybody's happy. So as a BA, my job is to analyze the situation and come up with the best possible solution. And whenever I come up with the possible solution, I make sure I get approval on that solution and then we implement it. That's how I resolve conflicts. Does it make sense, guys? Do you want to add anything here? Anything you think should be added or can be said, cannot be said? Biggie says, sorry, my internet is messing up today, so I am constantly logging in and out. That's not good. I think everybody else is doing okay, right? You guys okay? I mean, or you're also getting logged out or something like that. Don't worry, you'll have access to this recording anyways, but I still want you to be present in the meeting constantly. Bigger sales on my end. Okay, that's fine. So guys, what do you think? Does that answer make sense to you? Can you say something like this in an interview? Sandy and Babita agree. What about others? Others can't? Somebody can definitely ask you this question. Okay, you know what? As a BA, and rather this was a question, I mean, a while back, um, with one of the clients in the Midwest. They asked this question. Okay, you know what? As a BA, what do you think your strengths are, and how do these strengths help you in doing your job? What are your some core strengths? There are different ways of asking the same question. Now, your strengths can be anything, guys. Okay, maybe one of you is really good with athletics. Okay, maybe one of you is a very good chef with cooking. However, none of these qualities help you in getting a job of a business analyst. What the employer or the client is actually asking you is, what are some qualities which help you to do a very good job as a business analyst? What I usually say is that as a BA, I think I'm a very detail oriented person. I love to get into details. If I'm working on any particular module, I go to the in depth of it. I love to get into details. Very detail oriented. I love to do my research. What else? I'm a very adaptable person. I move from one project to another, and every project is different. Every project's team environment is different. The work pace is different. Culture is different. But I'm very adaptable. I can adapt to new surroundings very fast, very quick. I'm a very fast learner. I worked on so many different implementations, so many different projects. Every project had different new tools and terminologies. I learned up and I caught up with speed very fast. I'm a great team player. I love to learn new things. So, detail orientation, adaptability, fast learning. I'm a people's person. I'm a good negotiator. Say stuff like that. What about your weaknesses? Well, I think as a BA, I'm very good with all the phases of SDLC, and I'm very good with documentation and everything. The only drawback I have is that I don't have a lot of programming experience. They'll say, you know what, you don't need programming experience for this job. Well, I know I don't, but if I had any programming experience, it would definitely help me in having a much better and a much more effective conversation with the business with the developers. So I wish I had some more programming experience or development of experience. So having a good programming experience definitely helps in getting things done when you're working with developers. Although it's not required, but I really wish I had that kind of experience, It's one of my weaknesses, I think. What else? I think being a detail oriented person, sometimes I end up spending too much time on certain modules when I shouldn't. Time is very valuable in any implementation. James says, and how do you intend to overcome it? Yeah, that's another good follow-up question. If you say, you know what, I don't have any programming experience, I wish I did, because if I did, I would be having a better conversations with my developers. I would be speaking their language. I would be speaking at their level. So if that's my weakness. They would ask you, okay, what are you doing to overcome it? Well, I am learning all these programming tools by myself on the internet. There's so many tutorials out there. So I'm learning programming these days. I'm not there yet, but at least it's a start. And being a detail-oriented person, I end up spending too much time on some modules, and then on which I really shouldn't. So that's one of my weaknesses. And over having worked in the industry for so long, now I don't think it's really that bad, because I'm really good with time management now, and I don't end up losing sight of whatever I'm doing or what I'm supposed to do. And yeah, it's not no longer a weakness, but yeah, sometimes I end up spending too much time on certain things. Just love to get into details. Make sense, guys? Make sense? Doesn't make sense? What do you think? Now they can also ask you that, okay, so since you claim to be a healthcare person, or you have some experience with um, uh, different areas of healthcare, tell us something about your knowledge in healthcare. What are you familiar with? What exactly do you know about healthcare? Well, I'm very familiar with overall workflow of data between different entities, different healthcare entities. I'm very familiar. Like what? Well, I'm familiar with data flow between providers and payers. Like what? Well, for example, medical providers send healthcare claim to the payers, which is EDI 837. Payers send an EDI 835 back as a response. Providers can check member eligibility using a tool called Passport, which creates a data in EDI 270 format. An eligibility response is received, which is EDI 271. Patients and members and all the policy holders are enrolled through EDI 34 in the health insurance company system. So I'm very familiar with the workflow between different entities of healthcare. Within the hospital setting, I know there's a data exchange in the format of HL7. I know some applications which use HL7 data. Like what? Links iPoint, Links ePoint. So I know HL7. I know EDI. I know ICD. In the EDI transactions, EDI 837, all the diagnosis and procedure codes are reported using ICD codes. Rohit says, will they be asking particular questions about working and company where I have worked in the past 7 years? Anything on your resume is up for interview questions whenever you have an interview call. Anything is fair game. So you have to be prepared. Nupur has a question. If we have all projects in healthcare and we apply for different domains, what to do with answer they ask you or changing a domain from healthcare to XYZ? Yeah, that's a brilliant question. Great. Well, if somebody says, you know what, we are trying to hire a good business analyst, and we are a retail company, okay, we are Best Buy, or we are Walmart, and we are a retail company, and you all experience you have is related to healthcare. Why are you changing, first of all? And if you do change, how, why do you think you will be a good fit? Well, first of all, I consider myself as a very generic business systems analyst. I'm good with SDLC, I'm good with data flow, I'm good with SQL, I'm good with all these things. Okay, I implement projects, I know how to implement systems. That's what I'm good at. Healthcare is just one industry. I can work in any industry. Okay, I can work in any industry. So I consider myself as a very good business systems analyst who has a lot of experience in healthcare. Don't get me wrong, but I can work in any industry. Healthcare is just a system. It's all about data, and data going in, data going out, all about file exchange. It's all about running queries in SQL. It's all about implementing systems through SDLC. It's all about that. So regardless of the industry, I think I can do a very good job, whatever industry I'm working in. The fundamentals of project implementation, the fundamentals of project enhancement are still the same. And I'm very good with it. Why are you doing it? Well, my contract with the healthcare company is expiring, so I'm looking for new projects. And any project in healthcare or finance or any field is fine with me, and I'm okay. So try to present yourself as someone who's a very generic business systems analyst who has a lot of experience in healthcare, but is not restricted to healthcare, because you understand that working in the healthcare industry as a BA means a lot. However, you can still use that experience in other industries. Other industries also have a system. They also have reports. They also have SQL. They also go through all SDLC. Make sense, guys? Does it make sense? That's a good question, by the way. They would want you to defend yourself. And this is how you defend yourself. Biggest is, I think, retail deals with EDI. Well, even finance deals with EDI. You're right, yes. And EDI transactions are in everywhere. And you know what? Even if they don't have EDI transactions, it's still about data exchange. Data goes back and forth. It's still about pulling reports. It's still about implementing projects. It's still about working with the stakeholders. It's still about working on documentation, business requirements, technical requirements, working with developers, working with testers, creating test cases, test scripts. It's all the same. Healthcare is, I'll tell you this, and this is the truth. If you have experience in healthcare, okay, you have experience in healthcare, lots of experience and exposure in healthcare as a BA. Working in any other industry is a lot easier than, especially retail. Retail is a lot simpler. You know why? Because there are not many regulations. And you should say this in an interview, that I have worked in a very, very highly regulated environment. Note this down. You can even say this in an interview, that in healthcare industry, when we implement projects, when we implement systems, not only we have to make sure that the technicality of the system or the application is working. We have to make sure that the application is working, it's bug free, everything is in accordance with the requirements, the business stakeholders approve of the requirements, they approve of the functionality, everything is working just fine. So from technical perspective, or from feature and functionality perspective, everything is working. Not only we have to make sure all of that is working, but also we have to make sure each and every feature and functionality is in compliance with the government. So in healthcare, there are two layers of QC, two layers of quality assurance. One is from a technical perspective and feature and functionality perspective, and the other one is from the actual compliance perspective, making sure that everything is in accordance with the government rules and regulations. Whereas in retail or any other business or transportation, we don't have that kind of regulations. So working in the healthcare industry gives you a lot deeper experience as a business analyst. They'll ask you, okay, well, give me an example of compliance where you did some compliance testing too. Obamacare. If Obamacare wants you to implement or a change in your system so that any application coming in for a member is not denied if he has pre-existing condition and is younger than 19, you have to make sure not only technically the functionality is working, but you also have to make sure it is exactly in accordance with what government wants you to do. So if you have worked in healthcare, and I'm not just saying this as a selling point, I'm just telling you the truth, which you can also say this in an interview, that as long as you have experience in healthcare, you should be able to work anywhere else just fine. Because everywhere else, it's just SDLC and implementation and enhancements and data. There's no compliance part. So this compliance component is something you have as an additional star on your resume. Does it make sense, guys? Do you agree with my point, or what do you think? Nupur says even automobile. Yes, you're right, Nupur. And James says every company deals with EDI so far as there is B2B transactions. Yes. Banks have EDI transactions, and retail companies. I'll tell you this. We had a consultant who used to work. Rather, we still have some consultants who work for retail, and I don't know if they're still in retail, but they definitely have worked in retail in the past. So, anyways, they have a lot of data going back and forth between, let's say, there's Best Buy. Okay, what Best Buy does is they deal with a lot of vendors all across the world. Okay, the suppliers who supply different electronic gadgets, and they buy from Samsung, they buy from LG, they buy spare parts from other manufacturers all over the world. So they get shipments from all over the world, and they receive invoices, and they send out the payments and all that stuff. So it's all about data related to invoices, data related to all the bills which they have to pay for all their shipments and all that, and returns and exchanges and all that stuff. So there's a lot of data going back and forth from business to business, even when it comes to retail. Okay, so that's I think that was James or whoever brought that up. So I agree with your point. Yes, it's all about Samsung is sending an invoice to Best Buy that, okay, we sent you 10,000 television screens, LED screens. Okay, this is the total bill, and Best Buy says, okay, we'll pay you by this day and this much, and whatever. So there's a lot of data and file exchange between these entities. Okay, and these systems are very well structured, very well organized, and then whatever enhancements or implementations they'll be doing, they'll try to bring you as a resource. So yeah, but again, finance and healthcare have something which other industries don't, which is the compliance part. So what you can say is that as a business analyst, I work with the Office of Compliance and make sure that the project is not only meeting the requirements of the business stakeholders, but also meets the requirements of the federal government or the CMS or the HIPAA or the state government. Okay, all those regulations are also intact. So that's something I do as a business analyst. Does it make sense, guys? I hope it does. Anything to add? If you want to add anything, if you want to, um, contribute in any shape or form, please feel free to speak up. That's okay. Um, you don't have to necessarily restrict to whatever I'm saying. It's everybody has their own opinions, and a lot of you can have better opinions than I do. So if you do, please speak up. That's fine. It's exchange of ideas is always good. Okay. Um, my point is that and I have found this to be fairly successful. I personally think it has worked as far as the interview is concerned. Um, that it definitely works out very well in the favor of the candidate. That if you present yourself as somebody that that look, this is my profile, this is who I am, okay, and I'm very good with SDLC. I'm very good with implementations. I know everything about documentation. I know everything about working with stakeholders, good stakeholders, bad stakeholders. I know both of them. I know how to work out things. Okay, I'm very good with MS Visio, very good with design. Why do I do such a thing? Well, if I put together my diagrammatic representations and requirements, it helps in getting approval faster. Okay, people understand exactly what I'm trying to communicate through my requirements. Okay, so when I send my requirements along with my diagrammatic representations, I get approval on my requirements a lot faster. And of course, I create BRDs and all those documents. So I'm very good with SDLC. That's number one. And I'm very good with different areas of healthcare. I know EDI transactions. I know how to read an EDI file. I know how to troubleshoot an EDI file. Okay, if a particular file fails for a certain reason, EDI 837 is failing for a certain reason, I can do some research, right? Queries in SQL and then pull up data, compare it with the EDI file, and I can do Google search and um, I can definitely be very productive. So I'm very good with EDI files. I'm very good with ICD. I'm very good with EDI 834, 837, all those things. I know what HL7 is. I know how data is exchanged within a hospital setting. I know how testing is done. I know how implementation is done. So I'm very good with all these things. Okay, so try to present yourself as somebody who's that kind of a person. However, at the same time, you cannot know everything. There are many tools and technologies which these companies use which you don't even know. Even I don't know. But since I know all these things and I have jumped from one client to another and I've learned all these things, I can definitely learn whatever you have to offer and I can do a very good job. Okay, so this should be the theme of your interview or your conversation, as opposed to just being asked all the questions and you answering one after another and then presenting yourself as someone who's struggling with answers and who's struggling with um, um, trying to present yourself as who exactly you are. Try to present yourself in this manner, what I just said, and then you'll be fine. Make sense, guys? If they ask you, why are you leaving your current project? They always ask this. Well, my contract is expiring. I love where I work, but I'm a contractor. My contract is expiring. I'm looking for a new contract now. They'll ask you, okay, how soon can you join? 1 or 2 weeks notice is good enough. I can join in within 1 or 2 weeks. Okay, don't say too long. Don't say a month. People won't like that. They might even pass on you. At the beginning of the interview, they might ask, do you have any questions for us? Don't ask questions at the beginning, okay? Always say that, you know what, I might have some questions which I can ask at the end of our conversation, so please proceed. As a candidate, please don't ask questions in the beginning. Always save your questions for the end of the conversation. In the end, they will expect you to ask questions. What questions would you ask? What do you think? You know, when I get interviewed and somebody says, okay, what questions do you have for us? You know what I do? I mean, one of the questions I usually ask, hold on, there's a question. Bigesh sir, do we have time for mock interview with you before we get on the market, or can we arrange that? I know it would help me a lot since I have no job interview experience. Yeah, that's fine, Bigesh. Me and Raj, once we have worked on your profiles, will try to schedule something with you and just to brush you up. And yeah, I mean, so we can conduct a few mock interviews here and there, but you really don't need that much of actual mock interviews. Once you're in the market, people will ask the same questions which I'm asking you right now, or which we are discussing right now. And how you articulate your answers is something very important. If you feel the need, then yeah. Rupert says, what is the next step? What will I expect? Rupert, you're already in the market. You have been interviewed like 7 times already. Your next step is that you will have a job by Monday. That's your next step. You're doing just fine. I mean, if you still have any questions, yeah, feel free to ask. That's okay. Sandy says, how soon can we work on resumes? Well, once I have your information, I will work with you individually and then we can work on your profile. And as I said, I have received only 2 or 3, maybe just 2 emails with your information. Sandy says, I've sent my info. Yeah, I think I did receive your. Yeah, I'll work with you. Don't worry. Nupur says, I said that questions to ask to interviewer. Nupur, I didn't understand your question. I said that questions to ask to interviewer. What do you mean? Lubna has a very interesting question. On an average, how many interviews you give before getting a job for someone with no B experience? You know, I'll be honest. People usually don't crack their first interview. It's always 3, 4, 5 interviews, which usually people. I don't want to use the term screw up because it's not really a screw up. It's a learning curve. People learn from whatever mistakes they make or whatever interviews they experience. So it can be anywhere between 2 to 4 or whatever. Some people just take forever. Okay, don't get me wrong. Some people who are really bad, with all due respect to those candidates, I mean, they have been in the market for 3 months and they've had so many chances which they ended up screwing up one after another. They just don't want to learn. Okay, and they screw up even on the simple questions. And so it won't be the case with you. Don't worry. I mean, you will be fine. But I personally believe that first few interviews are always a learning curve, like Nupur is going through. Okay, I didn't expect Nupur to clear the first 2 or 3 interviews. No, because it's always a learning curve. You learn as you proceed. So, first few calls is something which can be a little bit challenging. But don't worry. I mean, if you are stuck up with any particular question, just send me an email. That, you know what, I'm struggling with this question. What do you think should be the answer? Or many people like Nupur, what they do is they have an interview and then any unexpected question comes up and they're not very comfortable with the exact answer. After the interview, they send me an email and say, hey, you know what, this is one of the questions, and I really don't know how to answer this. I did my best, but I mean, I don't know what would be the best answer for this. So yeah, that's fine. That's fair. I mean, it's okay for you to come back and discuss that particular question. So um, um, you'll be fine. Nupur says, "What is the next step? What will I expect?" Well, Nupur, I mean, since you are in the market already and you are being interviewed, and I think you had a bunch of interviews with, like, I think Emids and some other companies. So hopefully, um, what I heard from Sai, and to be honest, I don't get involved too much in marketing. You know that. What I heard from Sai is that you were submitted for Anthem and some of the positions in the East Coast, and if that really ends up happening, I may have to schedule a separate call with you just to discuss a few things, and then we can definitely discuss before your that particular interview, because Sai has said that some of the questions have come out already, and he knows what kind of questions are being asked. So I don't have those I don't have those um, I don't have those questions with me, but once I do, then yeah, we can discuss those questions. Nupur says, "You can hear me." No, I cannot hear you. Yeah, unmute yourself. Yeah, I cannot hear your voice. Sorry about that. Maybe there's something wrong with your audio. No, no. Can anyone else hear Nupur? Hear Nupur, or is it just me? Yeah, nobody can hear you, Nupur. I think is something is going on. Anyways, try writing your question on the chat box, or you can call me after this call. Okay, you can call me on my cell phone. So, guys, yeah, the next step is that once I have your information, I'll work with you individually, and then we'll send you a profile or resume, and we'll help you with your resume, and we'll bring you to the market. I plan on having another class because I still don't feel that I have discussed everything. This fast track thing is just not my style. Uh, uh, I want to send you the profile or send you the resume first, and I want you to go through that profile first, read it, understand it, or maybe just read this sample resume, the one I have shared on the screen, this one. Okay, try to get a sense out of it. This is how a business analyst profile looks like. Okay, and um, yeah, just try to read this resume or whatever resume, and there's a question. Sandy says, "Can you write some SQL queries which we can expect in real?" I shared some SQL queries in last class. I shared in the chat box, right? I can share some more. That's fine. That's fine. Lubna says, "Please email sample resumes." I will. I will. In another class, maybe. Yeah, sure, Sandy. No, 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 not a problem. I can share some more queries and all that. So so let's do this. I don't think if that may be the best strategy, but let's give it a try. I'll send this resume to all of you. Okay, or three of similar resumes. BA healthcare, few years of experience. Read those profiles tonight, or I'll send it tomorrow morning, whenever. Read those profiles, try to make sense out of it. Okay, try to picture yourself as someone who can do some things like that. In the meantime, send me your information. Let me work with you, prepare your BA profile so that you have some time to review it. And then today is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday is the 4th of July. Let's have a class on Thursday. Okay, let's meet on Thursday again. We'll have an interview prep session, maybe some mock questions, mock interview, and we can discuss some more topics, maybe write some SQL queries, some real-time queries, okay, with joins and everything. I can show you how to write a SQL query for all the patients who are on a particular medication, aspirin, between in the month of May. People who were given aspirin in the month of May. I want to see that list. That kind of questions. Okay. And what was the total cost for those medications? Something like that. So some real-time scenarios. Let's discuss all that stuff and maybe difference between uh, um, um, types of requirements, business requirements and technical requirements. This class is on YouTube, and I thought you would review it, but I don't think everyone did. So I'll send the recording again, and I hope that you will review this. And if it still doesn't make sense, I will review this topic on Thursday again. Okay, so read the resume, go through some of these recordings, read, get your resume, your own resume, read it, and let's discuss on the next step on Thursday. Let's see how good you feel. I don't expect all of you to be 100% confident with your profile and everything. That's okay. This is just a start. This is a preliminary phase, but at least get started. Let's get moving. Let's not waste time. Ilkham says, Dhruv, can you please give some real-time examples of team conflict or challenges in the project, how you resolved them? Most of the challenges or most of the conflicts are centered around functionalities or business stakeholders' expectations within a very constrained time frame. These are some real-time scenarios. Okay, no kidding, this is what happens in healthcare. Business stakeholders would expect team to add more features and functionalities and still deliver the project at the committed time frame or at the committed date. Okay, so it's always a challenge for a business analyst when a stakeholders comes in and says, you know what, can you please add these more features and functionalities? Well, as a BA, your job is to highlight the risks involved. That, okay, look, we will do this, but the risks are it will jeopardize the success of the project, it will jeopardize the quality of the project, we will be pushing the deadline until last minute, and that's not good. So these are the risks involved, just so that you know. Okay, and also we'll have to work overtime, so it will be additional costs. So as a BA, your job is to educate the business stakeholders with all these risks. It's your job. Okay, involve your project manager and your senior leadership, make sure everybody knows what's going on, and then rush everything through change control process. Okay, everything goes through the change control, and then you document the change, you get the change approved, you do the requirements and design everything related to that change, make sure developers know what the change are, you expedite through programming and then testing, and then you come back to the team and say, you know what, we have finally developed it, delivered it, it's tested, it's good to go, but we had to work a lot of overtime hours, the team worked during weekends and everything, and then finally it's done. So most of the challenges and conflicts you have are centered around scope creep. Okay, you can use this term during an interview, scope creep. And what you do to resolve them is just by educating the stakeholders that what are the risks involved. Okay, and how it can jeopardize everything. How exactly you do it? Well, of course, putting a lot of extra hours. That's number one. Secondly, you have to prioritize your work. As a good business analyst, what you do is you prioritize your work. Your requirements and test cases, everything is prioritized accordingly. You always work on the high priority requirements. You always test the high priority test cases. Prioritization is very, very important. And putting long hours is again something you may have to do. So this is very challenging. Another challenges BAs face are related to designs. Business stakeholders want you to build something. You take that design to the developers. Developers say, you know what, technically it's not possible. We cannot do it. So you are caught in middle of a conflict between stakeholders and developers. They're not going to talk to each other. They're going to talk to you. You are the mediator. So you have to work with the business stakeholders and developers and understand both of their perspective and have an open discussion and maybe come up with a different design, different functionality, different feature, which satisfies both of their criteria, both business and technical. These are the design review sessions. Say this during an interview. That's a great question, Elcom. That as a business analyst, there are a lot of disagreements related to the different features and functionalities. Business stakeholders want a certain functionalities and developers think it's not feasible. So I, as a business analyst, I'm always caught in middle of this conflict, and my job is to have a very effective and open conversation with business and technical people, and then maybe come up with a better alternative. Understand things from both perspectives, business and technical. That's what I do. I'm a BA. Does it answer your question, Ilkham? James says, that is why Agile Scrum helps avoid such conflicts and interference. To some extent, yes. Agile, since you keep going back to stakeholders again and again, that you know what, we are on only day 4 of this sprint and we have already written the code and everything is working. What do you think? Do you like it? You're asking the stakeholder, do you like it, or you want us to change it? Oh, change it? Okay, yeah, we can change it. It's little bit flexible, little bit more flexible, because things are always moving. Everybody's coding every day, so it's little easier. It's still not risk free. Do not pose it as that Agile is very risk free and you can do any modifications anytime. No, it always poses more risk. However, it's more flexible. Big A says, for scope creep, can we tell them I involve my PM and schedule a meeting with the client and show them the BRD and resolve the issue? Yes, definitely, yes. Look, guys, I want you to understand this very carefully. Whatever you do as a BA, you always keep your leadership. Your leadership means your project manager and your director in the loop. You always CC them in your emails. When you're working as a BA, you do it for real. And you also say this in an interview, that I always keep my leadership updated and I always keep them in the loop. They're always aware of what's going on. I don't believe in surprising my leadership, okay? So I always keep them in the loop. If there is a conflict and we need to resolve this conflict, I put together a meeting. I would involve my leadership to back me up. I would involve business stakeholders. I would involve technical people. I would facilitate that conversation. I would understand the nature of the problem, nature of the disagreement, nature of the conflict. Discuss with both the teams. Resolve it. By the time the meeting is over, we have a resolution. But I involve my leadership so that they back me up. They know what's going on. Disagreements related to features, functionalities, designs, time, deadlines, they always happen. Your job is to make sure you involve everyone, have an open dialogue, have an open communication, and document everything, educate people. If technical people say, you know what, technically it's not possible, you have to understand why technically it's not possible, and then you should be able to speak up in business terms with the business stakeholders and make them understand why technically it's not possible. You understand from technical people in technical language, not programming, but in technical terms, you understand why it's not possible. And now you have to speak up the same thing in business terms, in layman terms, and make the stakeholders understand why this is not possible, why we cannot do this. Okay, now we cannot do this. Now what are the next steps? Let's come up with something new. It comes says, where does BA document risks and opportunities in case of changing requirements? Is it in scope creep document? Risks and opportunities are part of BRD and change request, pretty much any document. If there's no section for risks and opportunities, you add it. It's your responsibility. You add it. It's always part of that template. There's another question. You were talking about the questions from applicant side to the interviewer. During the interview, what could those questions be? Oh yeah, sorry. I almost lost my train of thought. I just got lost in your question. So yeah. So let's say this is the last topic for today. Okay. I think I'll have to let you go after this. Just pay attention. Let's say I'm being interviewed. Okay. I'm the BA. Somebody's interviewing me. It goes on for 30 minutes. In the end, they ask me, okay, do you have any questions for us? What I usually ask is that, okay, I have very carefully analyzed the job requirements. Okay. And, but I'm still trying to understand what exactly are your expectations from this candidate. Don't say from me. Okay. Don't consider that you have already got the job. Just say that what exactly are your expectations from this candidate which you're trying to hire to do in your to help you with your implementation. How much time do you think this person will be spending on requirements? How much time do you think he'll be spending on testing, or working on the designs, or working on maintenance of business? What exactly do you think a typical work week for this candidate would look like? If it's a 40-hour work week, Monday to Friday, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, how exactly do you think this particular candidate you're trying to bring on board will spend his 40 hours? Okay, when you ask such questions, you come across as a person who is very curious that if you get this job, what exactly you'll be doing. Will I be spending too much time on requirements? Will I be spending some time on testing or no testing? Tell me, I want to know. Sure, job description tells you that, oh, we need experience in this and this and that. Fine. But the interviewer is trying to bring somebody on board, a BA. What exactly is your expectation from this BA? How do you expect this BA to assist you in your implementation? What exactly do you think this guy will be doing? Ask this question. Ask what kind of challenges do you expect this candidate, this BA candidate, to face during his job as a business analyst. What challenges do you think he can face? Do you expect this candidate? Always don't say do you expect from me. Don't say me. Okay. It sounds like as if you're taking for granted that you already got the job. You haven't got the job yet. What exactly do you expect from this candidate? I'm sorry, I thought my lost my train of thought. Yeah, what exact challenges do you expect this candidate to face? Okay, what exact do you think this candidate would be doing besides implementing projects? Do you expect this candidate to maintain your current systems in addition to implementing projects? Use this term, this candidate. Do you expect this candidate to support your day-to-day book of business? Write these questions down, guys. These are great questions. Most of the times when people ask such questions, the interviewer says, you know what, yeah, I like this question, by the way. Yeah, that's good. Great. Seriously, ask these questions. Does it make sense? What do you think, guys? All right. Questions, thoughts, comments. What do you think? So the next steps are, I'm going to send you this recording, this business and technical requirements recording, and some sample resumes. Read it, understand it, try to picture yourself somebody who can do such a thing. Send me your information. Let's work on your profile. Let's meet on Thursday. Let's have another session, and let's take it from there. Sounds like a plan? Do you feel good? I mean, do you feel okay, or are you too scared, or what do you think? What's your current situation? Sandy says feels great. Bigger says absolutely good. Oh, I like the positivity. That's good. What else? Do you at least feel like someone that who knows some stuff? You have learned something. Babita says challenging for me, and that's fair. That's fair. I mean, it's the initial phase. That's okay. It was challenging for me when I started. But whatever we have discussed so far, guys, just prepare. Whatever link is not working for you, just let me know, and let's see if we can find a workaround. Let's touch base on some topics on Thursday again. Some pending questions here and there again. Some questions you might have. Let's discuss those, and let's take it from there. Okay. I don't. Uh, uh, yeah. Let's take it as a next step, and if anything is necessary, we'll work on it. Then it says lots of new stuff, but very interesting. But yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, the job of a business analyst can be very, very interesting, and lots of new things going on every day. And it's a great way to start your career. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, you can definitely work your way up, and then do anything for a big healthcare or finance or any company you work for. So it can be interesting. Yeah, definitely. All right, guys. Look forward to my email tomorrow morning. In the meantime, let me know if you need any help, any questions, any recording or anything. And yeah, have a good night. I will speak with you on Thursday next. I don't want to schedule something tomorrow. It's too early. I want to give you some time to review some of this stuff. Okay, let's not cram you with information. I want you to prepare and do something on your own too. And um, yeah, just stay in touch. Okay, respond to that email I sent, and let's see what we can do with for your next steps. All right, guys, have a good night. Take it easy. I will speak with you on Thursday. All right, good night.